Hi, my name is John. Welcome to the Cancer Stress Management channel. Since you're here, I'm assuming that either you or someone you know, maybe a family member, friend, or someone you take care of, was diagnosed with cancer. And you're probably feeling pretty stressed right now. I know exactly how that feels. Let me take a few minutes to tell you about myself. Perhaps your story is similar. And then I'll tell you a little bit about the organization of this channel, what sort of videos you can expect, and how I organize them. And then I'll give you a little more detail about resources and things like that. Um, Last December, I went to the doctor for a completely unrelated issue. And during that visit, they ordered a couple of tests, one of which was a CBC, complete blood count. When the results came back, there was this really high value for lymphocytes. And they said maybe I was fighting off an infection, and we'll test again in January. And I was kind of like, okay, what does this really mean? So, of course, I go and I look up what does this mean? And the internet, did you get 1,000,001 results, some of which are completely ridiculous and others are actually pretty accurate. And so my range of possibilities was everything from eat more vegetables to you might have something serious. And so I chose to start eating more vegetables. Couldn't hurt. um, I also started to panic a bit because the serious type of illness that was mentioned was along the lines of leukemia or lymphoma. And that's pretty scary. So, in a minute, I'll tell you a little bit more about how I manage stress. And I'll be creating videos for all of the techniques that I found useful. My goal is to give you a lot of tools to try when things start to get overwhelming. And I've been a yoga and meditation practitioner for many years. And so I had a lot of options for things to try as techniques for managing stress, and some were more helpful than others. And sometimes it depended on the circumstances. Like sometimes one thing was better when I was feeling a certain way. More on that to come. So in mid-January, I got my next blood test. Numbers came back a little better, but they were still too high for the lymphocyte value. And so they ordered another test, something called flow cytometry. I had no idea what that was. And I went back to the lab immediately. Like as soon as I got the notice that they had put the order in, I went back and got in line and got my blood test. And this one took a little longer to come back. I think it took about 8 or 9 days. And I got the first report around 4:30 on a Sunday. You can't call your doctor because they're not at work. And this one said T cell receptor beta gene rearrangement. I'm like, what is that? And there were bright red letters saying positive. And I was like, I don't think this is a good thing. And so I looked it up and I discovered that this is one of the tests that indicates a likelihood of leukemia or lymphoma. And I think at that point I kind of just went numb, and I put my head in my hand and I was just leaning on my table like this, wondering what is going to happen to me. And like, how am I going to deal with this? What does this even mean? Do I really have this? A lot of things going through your head. And yeah, I think I was pretty numb. I don't even think I moved. And so my wife came home from work and she saw me sitting there like that and she was like, "What's wrong?" And I told her, I said, I got a test from that result from that last test and it's not good. And then she came over and she hugged me and she said, "Well, we're going to get through it together." And I was like, I don't know. And then, like an hour later, another test result comes in T cell receptor gamma gene rearrangement. And it's also bright red letters, positive. So I got to call my doctor first thing in the morning. And so the next day I got on a video call with him, and he looked over the results, and he sent a referral to a hematologist, trying to get me an appointment immediately. And he also told me that when both of those tests come back positive, it's highly likely. He didn't want to say that it definitely is, because he said, this is not my specialty. Let's send you to the hematologist. But highly likely that it's cancer. And I was just like, oh, God, what am I going to do now? And a couple days later, on January 29th, Wednesday is just like 2.5 weeks ago at the time I'm making this recording, my wife and I met with the hematologist slash oncologist, and he gave me a lot of information about what's going on with my blood cells and why these abnormal cells that don't die when they're supposed to, they stick around too long, so they start interfering with other processes. They're only supposed to live a certain length of time, and they recycle, or they come and they go. Gave me all the education about that and possible treatments, and like, I don't have any symptoms at the moment, so that was good, I guess. Now we're on a watch and wait, or as I call it, the watch and stress plan, because what's the next blood test going to show? I don't know. So then when I got home, I looked at the after visit summary, and I saw that, John came in presenting with a new case of asymptomatic T-cell large granular lymphocytic leukemia. Like, what on earth? I knew what leukemia was. I hadn't heard of this particular type, but yeah. And for a few days after that, probably a week, maybe more, I was experiencing these random panic attacks. I'd just be like, I'd be sitting doing something just perfectly normal, and then all of a sudden this feeling just comes down over me, and like something's gripping my heart, or maybe your heart falls into your stomach, or it's hard to explain some of the sensations that you feel, but then there's almost this paralyzed feeling, and you're just like, uh what do I do with this? And so yeah, I applied pretty much everything I learned from yoga and meditation to kind of deal with that. And one of the first things I will teach you is about breathing, because when you're overwhelmed by a sensation, and especially something like this where like your body is just got this feeling that's just got you in its grip, one of the only things, maybe, and it's, I think, one of the better things to do, although maybe it doesn't seem obvious, is to just breathe with it. And there are certain ways of breathing that can help calm you. And by calming your body, you calm your mind. And so I would sit when these periods of panic came on, and I would just breathe. And I would say, as long as my butt is still in this chair, I think I'm okay for the moment. And then I would just breathe and just allow the sensation to be there in my body, and just breathe with it. And over, sometimes I'd be sitting there for 15 or 20 minutes. And over that period of time, just breathing with it, little by little, my body would become calm. And then as the sensation would pass, and I'd be wondering, it's the weirdest thing, because you're sort of like, once it's gone, it's like, I can't believe that happened. But when it's got you, you're like, ugh. It's hard to describe it. It's just like, what? I'm just paralyzed with this panic, this fear. You're afraid. You have something that's potentially life-threatening. So yeah, breathing, it's one of the first things that we'll work on. There are some foundational practices that, if you make them daily practices, they can really help a lot. And one of which is just going for a walk. If you walk for half an hour a day, just get out, let your mind wander. It can do wonders for your mental health. I try to go walking I walk almost an hour in the morning most days, just because I have the time to do it and I like it. Um, and I try to get my 10,000 steps on my Fitbit. It's a personal challenge, but little things like that can help a lot. And so throughout the videos that I'm going to make and put on this channel, these are some of the things, and there's a lot more. Uh, I highly recommend also that you learn as much as you can about your diagnosis. Like it seems like when I look things up, even the different types of leukemia, they have different treatment options. They have different recommendations for things to do, different foods to avoid sometimes, because sometimes the things that are in our food can interfere with medication if you're taking something. So educating yourself is sometimes scary, because when you see like potential side effects or um, you know what different treatments are, some of them are a little frightening. And so educate yourself, look things up. I found the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society when I first started looking around, and they have really neat books that they can send you. I got this one on managing stress, which talks about a lot of the things that I'm going to be making videos about. There's things about nutrition, a lot of different information, and they can even send you this really cool like journal that comes with a nice little pencil case that has some colored pencils in there. And do I use the colored pencils? Yes, I do. Um, it's fun to like, you can make a little chart of how you feel on a given day. Sometimes, you have bad mood days where you're panicked, and other days you feel pretty good. But it's a way to kind of chart how you feel, and maybe you can even see which practices you were doing on a given day that really helped your mood improve. So all these little things are helpful. And support groups, talking to people. I started feeling a lot better when I started talking to people about it. At first, it was sort of like, do I want to tell people about this? It's almost like I got this dark secret, right? I've got this thing that's wrong with me. I'm broken, uh, but I'm not broken, and neither are you. And you'll find that as you work on just breathing and practicing and managing things, you can do it. You can. And so, what else for this channel? The content. Sometimes I'll put a video up that will explain a practice in detail, and you probably don't want to listen to that one every time, because it'll just be me talking an awful lot, and it will distract you from the practice. So there'll be one that might explain things, and another that's just the simple practice. For instance, like maybe I do a yoga video and I really go into detail about where to put your feet, or how to turn your body, or put your arms in a certain way, or something like that. Future videos, it may just say, get into warrior two position. Okay. And you already know how to do it because you saw the instructions. So I'll try to label them so it's kind of clear what's the daily practice version versus the verbose instructional one. Um, Aside from that, that's pretty much everything about me, and what this channel is all about. I will begin to post instructional videos this week, and welcome to the channel. If you have suggestions for things, questions, uh, anything that you think might be a practice I should include, please put comments and I will get back to you about it, or I'll make something and I'll say thanks. And by all means, please consult your doctor about everything. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to diagnose you. I am not, treating you for anything. I'm offering these practices that were helpful for me to maybe help you. And you should definitely listen to the experts, because there's new treatments coming up all the time. There are, support groups with professionals who trained for this and can give you really good advice. So take advantage of every resource at your disposal, and take good care of yourself. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.